this was going to be really fun and upbeat and filled with pop bangers. Didn't quite work out that way. Porter Robinson continuously subverting expectations and pissing off his core fan base. Don't you kind of not love to see it? Because it creates some wild discourse every single time. But Porter Robinson this time around has given us way more of like a streamlined pop album, or at least you thought it was going to be that with the singles, and it isn't quite the same as what he was doing, well, way back in the day, and certainly not the same as what we got on Nurture, which was way more atmospheric and really beautiful in its sound. But this time around, he's kind of ditched that once again and tried something completely new. But one thing I've got to say about Porter Robinson is that I just like how daring he is, and he doesn't really seem to mind the discourse whenever he drops anything. He is more than happy to give you something totally new and fresh every single time, and he has certainly done that with this album here. It did set itself up to be a really fun, upbeat, carefree, silly, not taking itself way too seriously at all album with the singles, which I may as well start with because the singles are fantastic. I've got to say, I think they're really great songs, but of course once you actually get into the album, it doesn't quite pan out that way. But man, Knock Yourself Out, the opening track with that Bitch I'm Taylor Swift reference, that just sounds so cool to me. The way he says it, it's silly. He's not really trying too hard to be anything other than goofy, and I'm just here for it, to be honest. It's got this easy breezy sound, it's ridiculously catchy. The I'm in a mirror baby, that part, that is stuck in my head all the time. I've been singing that constantly since the album came out, singing it constantly since the song came out. This is really great. I know a lot of people will say Cheerleader is better, but I think I might slightly prefer this song. They're very close, they're both fantastic pop songs, no doubt about it. They're different from each other though, and I just think this track kind of slightly appeals to me ever so slightly more. Like they're really neck and neck. But yeah, this is so good. Really clever use of the idiom of knock yourself out, you know, go and knock yourself out. I think the way he uses that in this song is super clever. Cheerleader, saw somebody compare this to Anna Managuchi. If you are aware of that early like 2010s phenomenon, shout out to you for knowing what that is. I kind of get what they mean, that kind of beepity boppity type music. That's again a little very sugary, very sweet on the ears. Kind of sounds like something like, you know, you'd hear in like a Hello Kitty soundtrack or something. It is overly saccharine at points, but I think Porter Robinson, like with Nurture, is nailing the sound in the approach he's going for, just because he approaches it in such a soft and delicate way and knows exactly how to kind of meander through it without making it sound overly like annoying. Like this could be a really annoying song, I think, if you gave it to another artist who didn't quite know how to tackle it, but I don't think so. I think Cheerleader is really, really fun. I think once you hit the chorus, it sounds huge, it's maximalist, it's great. Russian Roulette kind of proves that he knows the type of audience he's appealing to. It's very chronically online, I guess you could call it, with the pitchfork and YouTube references, which sound really silly, but again, done in a way that doesn't sound annoying, or at least kind of makes you understand where he's coming from without it feeling forced. What it does remind me of actually is Courting's song from their newest album Flex, where they randomly referenced Letterboxd, and stuff like that in music can be a bit like, oh really, we're doing this? But I think when you do it in a way that's a little funny, like kind of self-aware, sort of a nod and a wink to the camera as you do it in a sort of breaking the fourth wall type of way, I think it tends to work. And I would say both examples, Courting and Porter Robinson, do it so well. I didn't expect, or I don't think many people would have expected, a Courting name drop in a Porter Robinson review, but I think if you know the song I'm talking about, you'll know exactly what I mean. So yeah, at this point you're getting some really upbeat fun tunes, although Russian Roulette is a bit slower paced, but you do get that electro pop new rave breakdown, which sounds awesome, and you're kind of just thinking, oh my god, they're going to keep this up, it's going to keep this up, it's going to be full on banger, 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 and then you get to Perfect Pinterest Garden, and this is probably one of the catchiest songs on the whole album, man. And it's at this point Well, I caught it with the singles, the lead singles. But this is the one where I'm like, holy moly, this guy has been massively inspired by James Ivy on this whole friggin' album. This is the direction he's taken. He heard that EP last year. He went crazy for it in the same way I did, because it was my EP of the year last year, the whole year, the best thing of the whole year in terms of EPs, undoubtedly. And I think he thought the same thing, because this track right here, man, it is straight from that EP. It is just kind of like early 2000s inspired, kind of like boy bandy inspired at times, but done in such a really fun way. It's super catchy. That chorus is fantastic. Yeah, James is all over this album. And if it weren't even more obvious than that, he is quite literally on the last two tracks of the album. He's got writing credits, he's got production credits, and Is There Really No Happiness? My God, this track again pulled straight out of the James Ivy playbook. The drums, pay attention to those drums, man. These drums sound so good. It's such a subtle aspect of the song, but if you just listen to those drums, just fixate on them, they sound fantastic. And again, that inspiration from that early 2000s sound really coming through. It is crazy to me that we are at a point now in music where the 2000s is slowly creeping in to having an influence on modern music. Like, usually you tend to see, 70s, 80s throwback stuff, particularly 80s throwback music is super common in modern popular music and all kinds of music, really. Everyone kind of wants that vibe from the 80s. You get it from the 90s as well. Those eras have always been like attempted to be replicated from modern bands and artists and singers and pop stars. But now we're hitting a point where the 2000s is bleeding its way into music. That to me is absolutely wild. But I'm here for it, because James Ivy is killing it. The production here is fantastic. And Porter Robinson is working really well with it. Euphoric as hell chorus. The writing is taking a bit more of a turn here, because like I say, the album doesn't quite set you up for what you're expecting it to be. It certainly reaches a point where he gets into more deeper emotional type topics, and yeah, it pays off really nicely on this one, as it does the closing track as well. But I'm going to get to that one a little bit later on, because I want to talk about the lyrical theme on that one. But yeah, Kitsune Misan, that track is in the middle of the album. It's got like this blade flow. What the hell? Where the hell does that come from? I have no idea where he suddenly pulls out a friggin' blade flow from. I don't know. Really interesting lyrics here. Like I say, pulling way far away from what we were expecting with the singles, and going way more into like, insecurities about your looks and feeling like you need to always look good all the time because that improves your mood. The instant gratification of just getting things for the sake of having them, but then that really not really leading to anything. And the feeling is just kind of like nothingness. A pretty sad song, but done in a way that you don't really catch it if you're not really fully paying attention to the lyrics, because he kind of dresses the song up a little bit in a more, catchy fashion, as you'd expect. Easier to Love You, man. Oof, this track is pretty sad too, where the perception of yourself is never quite the same as how other people perceive you, because you might think of yourself so negatively, you're never quite fully sure what people think of you, and you just have these insecurities. And he's just basically saying on this song, look, if you could see yourself the way I see you, it would be easier to love you, sort of thing. It's a really beautifully put together track. It's sad, and yeah, just like I say, subverts the expectations of what I was expecting, because listening to Knock Yourself Out, you wouldn't think the entire album would kind of go in this direction at all. But it certainly all works, and I like this album so much because of that, because it just gives you so much range. Some of the tracks are super upbeat, some of the tracks are upbeat while also having sad lyrics, which I think works as well. I think his influences are shining through nicely. His production style is fantastic. His vocals are really soft and boyish, but they work really well. Like, everything just hits. It all just hits. And that final track, which completely strips things back completely down to the bare minimum, but it's a really stunning song. My God, the love letter to the fans is really, really beautiful. Just, yeah, feel like he tackles this so nicely, like just it makes it seem like it might be about some kind of breakup or some kind of relationship, but then you realize actually no, it's way more deeper than that. It's way more rooted in his fan base and how he's talking about how like you know, I want to say I love you, but I don't even know your name, I don't even know who you are, but that kind of thing doesn't really matter because I still want to say it. It's a really nice track, and yeah, just rooted in this like humbleness. The whole album's just rooted in this humbleness. It's super likable. It's hard not to like Porter Robinson. After listening to Nurture and falling in love with that album, it was on my year-end list for that year as well, and hearing this and him kind of go in a different direction, go a bit more of a poppy friendly direction, and he just nails both sides of it. Like it's just great. He's such a likable artist. It's so hard not to like him. And there is a bit of discourse around this album because I think people don't want to see him become this pop artist, I guess you could say. And I've seen some people say about how like he's, you know, dressing up as this hyper pop artist and stuff. I don't really hear that at all. I just find it to be a really likable guy that makes music that is pure. It's so pure. It's just so joyous. It's so pure. It's not trying to be fake. It's just trying to be silly at times, goofy, while also being really earnest. Like, I just find it difficult to not love what Porter is doing. He's also just massively making music that appeals to me. I caught onto the Masakatsu Takagi influence on Nurture, which he then later confirmed was true in interviews and stuff, which I thought was really cool. And I absolutely love Masakatsu Takagi. He's one of my favourite artists of all time. He's absolutely wonderful to listen to. If you've never checked him out, check out any of his albums. They're brilliant. And then now we've entered this new realm of making music that sounds closer to like James Ivy. Again, love that guy. Had my EP of the year last year. Like, he's kind of like, it's almost like he's watching me and making music specifically for me. I doubt he is. He probably doesn't even know I am, but he just feels that way. He just keeps making albums that appeal exactly to me, and it's really cool to see. And it's really nice to see that style that came from that EP from James last year bleed into more music. We might see a new era of music sounding more and more like this, because Porter is a much bigger artist and a much more recognizable name. So if more artists pick up on this, we might start seeing this bleed into the mainstream. Who is to say that it won't? I don't know. We can't fully confirm yet, but it may end up happening. I think it's great. Is it quite as good as Nurture? Probably not, but they're very different albums, and comparing them seems pointless to me. I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10. I think it's one of the best albums of the year. I think it's great. I think it's a really fun, enjoyable album that is grounded as well, pulls you back down to earth, gives you some really emotional moments. It's pretty sad at times, but it's also really upbeat, goofy, silly, and really enjoyable. It tackles insecurities in a way that I think is really relatable. And Porter Robinson, yeah, it's just too hard not to love at this point for me. I think it's great. I think it's a great album. Please check it out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well about what you think. Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Let me know. Have a good day. Subscribe. Check out my Patreon if you're feeling really generous as well. Have a good day. Goodbye.